a lot of listing agents still think the VA loan is bad because it gets a bad rap sometimes because of just, the way appraisals are done or, the way they have to sign addendums and things like that. But it's really not. It's the best loan out there, in my opinion.
Welcome back to Good Better Broker as we bring in Anthony Lee. He is the CEO and founder of Zap Mortgage, the parent company of Veterans Alliance Home Loans, and he is based in Columbus, Ohio. Anthony, great to have you here.
Hey, great to be here. Love every time I come to Pontiac.
Well, we are excited to have you. I am particularly excited for this conversation with you because of your other pursuits, which we'll get to in a moment. Right. But first, about you and the business. You got into mortgages back in 2016. You are a retired military of 22 years, so thank you for your service as a member of the U.S. Air Force. And last but certainly not least, you are an endurance athlete and currently a coach for a group of runners that, as we sit here in early April, is getting ready to head to the Boston Marathon. A lot to unpack there, so let's start with my favorite subject, besides mortgages, which is running. Tell me how being an endurance athlete and coach impact your job as a mortgage loan originator.
Right. Endurance athletics is something that's the same as being a loan originator. If you've made it to this point, you made it through 2022, 2023, 2024. It's a marathon. It's not sprint. We might have little sprints in between, but it's really a marathon. But it's still about doing the daily things every day, the discipline to go every day. Because our training programs are 6 months long. So when I create a program and coach athletes, right, it's 6 months. And it's 2 months of base training, right, where it's just easy zone 2 running. Everyone's heard of zone 2 running by now. Easy zone 2 running, building up the aerobic base so we don't get hurt, right? And building up that mitochondria so when we get into those 4 months of training, we can actually stick to the plan. Well, there's a plan during the base. You're running a certain amount every day, a certain time, you're stretching, you're lifting weights. It's disciplined every day. Then when you get into the training, as you know, right, it gets harder and harder as we go along, but you have to do it every day. You have to show up. Like, you just can't say, I'm going to skip a couple weeks and expect to run 26.2 miles, a month after that. So the correlations go great because you must be disciplined and you have to do it or else it's going to show on race day. So if you're not getting loans right now, that means back in November and December, you probably weren't doing what you needed to do and have the right conversations to be doing business now. So it's the same thing in running.
Yeah, it truly does apply to this business. A marathon, not a sprint. You have to do the work over the long haul to see the results that you're looking for. More about you personally, by the way, and some of your athletic accomplishments. You've done 17 Ironman triathlons, which is incredible, so hats off to you for that. This is also wild, and I first heard this when you actually were here a few months back and got the Dominate Award on a Wednesday sales huddle. You did all 6 of the World Marathon Majors in 1 year, and that was just a couple of years ago in 2024.
Right, I did.
How do you reflect on that experience?
That was one of, the planning. Like, I started in 2022 into 2023 planning to do them in 2024 because to get into the world, just for instance, the London Marathon alone gets over 1 million, they call them ballots, 1 million ballots or entries for 30,000 spots. That's it. So just to gain entry now, because I'm a somewhat faster runner sometimes, and a lot of these marathons I was able to get in on a time qualification like Boston, but some I had to do a charity. So I ran for a charity in the UK, and it was a soldier's charity, the Royal Air Force charity. So prepared mentally, I was excited going in. It's hard, so you do 6 marathons around the world in 1 year. So I started in Tokyo, then I did Boston Marathon, as you know, on a Monday. I got on a plane on Tuesday, flew to London, then I did the London Marathon on Sunday. So that's the hardest part of this because you have a 6-day turnaround. You're doing a double marathon or 2 marathons. And then, of course, you have the last 3, which are Chicago, Berlin, and the granddaddy of them all, New York. So, when I look back and reflect now, I'm glad I did it. Will I ever do it again? No. No. And would I say it's a challenge for people that want to do it? Yes, because it's a logistical challenge, and then physically and mentally, it was hard. It was hard.
I bet it was. I mean, I've done the three domestic ones, being New York, Boston, and Chicago, and I can only imagine what that was like for you over the course of 1 year. So, truly impressive accomplishment. So, congrats to you on that. Back to mortgages, because I know that's what everybody's really here for.
Right.
I could sit here and geek out with you on running all day, but tell us about getting into the mortgage industry for you, because this is your 10th year in the business.
It is.
How did this come to be for you?
So I started in real estate. So, I started in real estate at Coldwell Banker in Cherry Creek, Colorado, Denver, Colorado. I was going to school. So I retired from the military. I wanted to be a sports psychologist for the Olympics in the Olympic Training Center. So I was going to school, got accepted, so excited. I was going to school. This is back in 2012, right? 13. Property Brothers was really exciting. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And I had a lot of time. And I go from working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week in the military to going to school. I was bored. So I went and got my real estate license. Did very well. But then, mortgages, I saw that because of my military experience, because of my breadth of reach, it was probably more beneficial because I could do it in all 50 states. Back then I was like, all 50 states. I didn't know what that entailed at the time, but I was like, I could do this in all 50 states. So I started in the mortgage industry. And I think it aligned, I have an MBA, and so it kind of aligned in that business model and finance model that I liked.
There's a story about your very first listing on the real estate side.
Yeah, that was great. So coming from the military, I'm a hard charger. I didn't know, going into real estate and all the real estate agents, everybody, you may know or you not know, I didn't know the difference between a $200,000 house and a $10 million house. I thought real estate was real estate. So Cherry Creek in Denver, the very rich area, Cherry Hills Village, where the Mike Shanahan lives and the Denver Broncos, all that. I didn't know. So my broker at the time, you had to go out in the first month and get 200 no's walking around on the street, and this before he would even do any more training with you. So I did that, and I got one sale by doing that. It was a townhome. And then he lets you call listings. Back then it was a book of expireds. We didn't have all the computers, a book of expired. So I was calling there, I was like, man, this sucks. So I ripped out the first page of the book that the whole brokerage used, by the way. I didn't know. I was like, I just ripped it out. And I drove to the first address on there. I knock on the door, and the guy answered. I was like, and remember, I'm brand new. I'm pretty green, right? I have my suit on. I have a folder with all the listing paperwork. And I lock. I say, hi, my name's Anthony. I'm with Coldwell Banker, and I would like to talk to you about listing your homes. And he looks at me and goes, excuse me, what makes you think that you can list my home that the other guy couldn't and the 20 other realtors that called this morning? He was pretty mean to me. And then back then, you remember, I wasn't used to that, right? I looked at him and I go, man, I made it through wars. I think I can sell your effing house. I said something like that. And he just looked at me and he was like, come on in. And so I went in and we just started talking, and I hadn't signed the listing agreement on this expired, $4.1 million. I thought that was just normal. Went back, told my broker, he's all excited. He's like, here, do you want help? I didn't understand this either. He was like, do you want help with that? I was like, well, yeah, you're my boss. Aren't you supposed to help me? And he said yes. Then he took 50% of my commission, which was even after the split. So even after my 30%, he took 50 more percent. So I learned a lot about real estate. But yeah, that was my first one. Got yelled at, snapped right back at him, and boom. Got a $4.1 million listing.
Innocence is bliss. Your naivete at that point worked in your favor. So
it did.
That's pretty cool to hear. Your military experience, and you kind of alluded to some of this with the training,
right,
and the endurance sports. But how did being in the military, in your mind, set you up to focus more on mortgages and more so have success as a mortgage loan originator?
I think the military instills a sense of discipline in you, and most people that it does. So you had the discipline, and I knew, when I wake up in the morning, this is what I need to do. Like when I first started real estate, I showed up at the office every day at 7 o'clock before everybody, in my suit and tie. That's what I thought it was. So, and how that really resonated in mortgages, because I was in the military and I had only heard about my VA loan a few times. And then as I was sitting there, my reach as a real estate agent was only going to be Denver and Colorado Springs and those bases there. But as a mortgage person, I was like, wow, I can go all the bases in San Antonio. Every single base that I was stationed at, I can call the people there. I can call everybody at the Pentagon I worked with, see where they're PCS into, and do all of their mortgages for them. So my impact to society and to the veteran community was going to be that much larger. So that's why I said, okay, let's look at this mortgage thing and see what we can do with that. So that way I can make my impact. Because I've always been about serving and caring people. I don't charge the max comp or anything like that. I want to give back because I am retired. I am blessed like that. So it's good.
I've talked to a lot of our VA focused clients over the years, and the ones who are veterans like yourselves almost always say the same thing, that no one understands doing a VA loan like a veteran.
Right.
What have you seen in that space, and why you're at an advantage over other people when it comes to serving your veteran clients?
So I think it goes back to a lot of just even in college and fraternities and sororities and the network that you hang around with as a professional, you're more likely to do business with them, right? So same with the military. The minute I step into a conversation and the minute someone from, I don't know, Chase, Navy Fed, one of these banks is talking to this client, that client's already going to be like, we already have something in common. There's a common ground. I understand their language. I understand the timelines that's happening. I understand the constraints. I understand a lot of things, what's going on. And I also understand the BAH and the housing money they're going to get and how much they're going to waste by living on base. So I provide more of a, consultative service to them. I was like, hey, if this is your first thing, let's talk about why you should use your VA loan, why you should let the government pay, why you should help start your financial future here. But there's that camaraderie. There's always it. I come across people that I served with 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and we'll get on the phone and we haven't talked maybe in 10 years. It's like we never left. So there's always that community, no matter what.
Yeah, those bonds are awfully strong. So it's cool to hear just the experiences that you had. What is it that non-veteran LOs fail to understand about working with veterans?
I think they fail to understand a lot of what that veteran. So a veteran has a choice, right? A veteran has a choice. They could live on base if they want to, which is very easy, and they can use that BAH to use that on base, or they could choose to live off base and use that BAH for the government to pay their mortgage for them, or they could just rent a house off base, which is even easier. So I think LOs that aren't military, they don't understand that, hey, there's these choices they have, unlike people that aren't in the military that just are moving somewhere. There's choices, so help guide them to the best choice for that family, best choice for what's good for them. Maybe they're a lower rank, maybe they're an E4 or below, maybe they're a lower enlist, whatever it is, help guide them. And they don't understand some of the nuances. They also don't understand, which is sad to say, they don't understand a lot of just the VA loans. For example, right now I'm doing a VA loan for a veteran family in Florida. There's another company out there that has veterans in their name. I don't know. And the loan officer there was not a veteran, but he works at a company called Veteran something, something, something. But they gave up on this veteran. They gave up on him, said, we just can't do the loan. The real estate agent called me. Not that I'm a rescue VA loan person by any means, but he called me. He's like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, sure, let me look at it. And I looked at it. Boom, we got it. They'll be closing in 2 weeks. No problem. Because we know how to structure VA loans. We know how to do the things for the income. We know how to verify everything. And just LOs don't get it. And they don't dig into the VA handbook because it's a lot more work for them sometimes. So,
Anthony, tell me about Veterans Alliance Home Loans, because I mentioned this off the top of the conversation.
Yeah.
You soft launched this last fall, and now
Right.
you're really trying to gain some traction with it. Tell me what Veterans Alliance is all about.
So Veterans Alliance is about the veterans. It's for veterans, by veterans. We're serving veterans, like everybody on there. And even the team here at UWM, right? You have veterans working here that are underwriters, that are working on loans. It's like it's all for veterans. The structure of it. And the name of it, Zap Mortgage is great, but I was seeing that, veterans, you go on Google, you type in VA home loan near you, certain names of other companies come up because of the SEO and the GEO and all that other stuff. So I needed to change that. And so we soft launched in November, and now we are starting to gain traction and starting to take the market share where we need to. Very slowly, though, because a lot of it's grassroots, too, because now it's listing agents are seeing us on the other side of their transactions. They're seeing that we're closing VA loans in 10 days or less, right? With the power of UWM. If people listening to this don't know, the power of UWM, we're closing VA loans 10 days or less. We're getting CTC'd, and the listing agent's like, done already? right? And so it's a lot of word of mouth right now, especially around the bases in Florida, Texas, Colorado, where we're really pushing, where we really have realtors, our partners out there working. So it's a lot of grassroots right now. We're working on the Google side of it. That's not as fast or not as easy because I don't have the $1 million budgets that other places have. But it's all right. I don't mind growing slow. But we're really impacting veterans because they're starting to realize it. We're starting to, in fact, I'm going to be speaking at a fundraiser for veterans in Connecticut. So it's, people are starting to take notice.
You mentioned listing agents. I want to ask you, what is it that you ask listing agents about VA loans?
Yeah, I ask them all the time when they're hesitant. I was like, well, why do you think VA loans are so bad? And then they'll go off these litany of things from 30 years ago, because I've been in the business 30 years. Okay, great. Sorry. Of reasons why not to take a VA loan, and they're going to counsel their clients on there. So, I get this out of them. So I listen and I talk to them about it, and then I re-educate them on the VA loan, and then I say, hey, I'll guarantee you. In fact, I'll put money in escrow for you. If I don't close this loan in 15 days, you can have that $3,000 or $5,000 I put in the title company for you. And they'll be like, really? I was like, yeah. They're like, well, you don't need to do that. I guess we'll take a chance and do it. So, but I ask them, because a lot of listing agents still think the VA loan is bad because it gets a bad rap sometimes because of just the way appraisals are done, or the way they have to sign addendums and things like that. But it's really not. It's the best loan out there, in my opinion,
and the opinion of many others.
Right.
And I've heard this too from a lot of our VA focused clients, and you yourself, 22 years of service. I mean, are you still surprised that we are at a point in 2026 where people have these myths in their minds about the VA loan?
Yeah, I just don't get it. We're so far removed from that old system or whatever it was back then that, if they just did a little bit of research, if they just kind of maybe asked some questions to their preferred lender, which maybe they're maybe not, they're good, they would get the answers. But I can't believe we're still having the conversation in 2026.
Well, maybe with Veterans Alliance, that narrative will shift,
so.
And I think that your efforts there are incredibly noble. You were telling me when we talked on the phone that there's not an objection that you cannot overcome.
Definitely not.
How does that work?
Every single one. So I think brokers, you guys, everyone needs to realize we are salespeople to begin with. Okay, we're salespeople. So we need to practice our craft. You guys do it here at UWM. Matt has all AEs out there practicing. One, you need to understand that, but two, you need to listen, because sales, you don't listen enough. So there's not an objection I can't overcome because I listen to what they're saying, and then I create a pain point and I try to take them, because there's not going to be change in anybody in any sales conversation. You're not going to get them to change or to do anything unless you bring them from an area of pain to an area of pleasure, right? To where they want to be, right? From renting to the American dream, to lowering their payment, to getting a better rate, to closing faster, whatever it is. So you, as a loan officer, you need to figure out what that pain point is, and you need to learn sales. You need to learn tonality. You need to learn when to lower your voice and maybe say, really? Well, tell me a little bit more about that, Justin. And see where they're coming from. Because if you ask the right questions and listen, you're going to be able to craft the right response to any objection. And they're not objections. It's them being afraid, or it's them not wanting to tell you they don't have enough money for a down payment. How do I do a VA 100% loan? Or just FHA. I don't have the money for a down payment, but they don't want to say that because they think it looks bad. So get it out of them and say, yeah, we have DPA programs that can take care of it. And then bring the excitement up in the conversation. Tell them it's possible, right? So, yeah, I'll answer any conversation. I'll get up on stage and do it. Let's go.
A lot of what you just talked about sounds like your psychology background.
Right, yes.
Yes. The knowing how to talk to somebody, the different tone in your voice, things like that. So that's fascinating to hear. So many different facets of what it is you do. But I'll wrap it up by asking you this: the way that you coach your athletes, your endurance athletes, are there similarities between the way that you approach that and the way that you approach helping your LOs, helping people have success in mortgages?
There is. It's very. We came up with a 100-point day, just like you guys have your perfect days here. We have a 100-point day. from that 100-point day, if you go above and beyond, I can tell you how much money you're going to make, how many you're going to close from that. So it's the same way with running and athletes, and the same way with them. You know, we want to be disciplined. We want to have it all in front of us. We want to make sure we're hitting our milestones to make sure it happens. So we want to make sure in November, December, we're doing what it takes. So we're having a great March, a great April, right, a great June. And so that discipline, that standard, we set the standard early on, so that way we never deviate from it. So it is a very, very fine line, and it's the same no matter what I'm doing in life.
Hey, like they say, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So
That's right.
that definitely applies to you. Really enjoyed the conversation. Appreciate you joining us. Anthony Lee with Zap Mortgage and the Veterans Alliance Home Loans. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it. Thank you for watching Good Better Broker and helping us support independent mortgage brokers everywhere. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified about new videos, as well as your preferred podcast platform for a new episode every other Tuesday.